It hasn't even been 48 hours since you buried your husband. What I hope to help you come to grips with, no matter how many times you replay what happened, the outcome is inescapable.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. This is Mike. Joining me as always, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, listeners, and welcome to the Georgina Campbell podcast. I figured since this is the second week in a row we're covering a Georgina Campbell movie, let's just change the name of the podcast. What the hell? How the hell are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good. We finally got the latest episode of the main show recorded, so that's something, I guess, to be said.
It's something. It's not exactly what we wanted it to be, but it's something.
Yeah. Also with us, it's Don and Ellie. What's up, Don?
Yeah, what's going on? Always happy to be here.
All right, so we had a few releases this week, and we decided to go with Psycho Killer. I don't even know for any particular reason. I think it's just the one we all happen to see. Venom already mentioned Georgina Campbell stars in it, and I mean, she's pretty much been a highlight of most movies she's in, and that's no different here, at least for me. But we will get the synopsis off IMDb. A police officer tracks a killer after her husband, a highway patrolman, becomes one of his victims. Short, simple, to the point. Has about as much depth as the actual movie, but we'll get into that. General thoughts, we'll start with Venom. What did you think of Psycho Killer?
All right, this is a weird one because I've read nothing but bad reviews for this movie. And after watching the movie, I understand why it's getting so many bad reviews. But I'm going to be the contrarian and say that I actually was on board for this movie for the majority of the time. I liked the story. I liked our titular killer. I liked that he was a big guy with a deep voice. I liked the mask that he wore. I even like his backstory, mildly enjoyed his backstory. Where this movie falters, it's in its ending. This ending is so unsatisfactory. It's one of those status quo endings where everybody who survives the movie is in exactly the same place they were when the movie started. Like, this movie has no major bearing other than the people that the killer, dispatches of course, and their families. But as far as what we're watching on screen, once we get to the end of the movie, it just becomes a status quo ending. And I fucking hate status quo endings because it's like, why did you waste an hour and a half of my life to basically have it end exactly where it was when the movie started? So yeah, overall, I mean, obviously I do wish that there could have been more blood, better kills. There were some decent kills in this, but not something that Don or I would like really enjoy seeing. I mean, this movie first and foremost is a police procedural. It has horror elements. Obviously, it's a slasher. We're following a serial killer, on their journey across the country as they kill basically everyone that they come in contact with, along with some very key people that the killer is actually searching for as well. But yeah, like I said, overall, it could have definitely leaned into the horror a little bit more. It could have leaned more into the slasher elements. So, what we end up with is an average police procedural. Like, this isn't even an exceptional police procedural. It's an average one. But once we get that ending, I was so unsatisfied. I mean, I was angry. I was legitimately angry at the ending of this movie for just wasting an hour and a half of my life. But of course, as Mike already mentioned, Georgina Campbell, just like last week, once again was the highlight of this movie. Of course, we all know her from Barbarian. And of course, if you listen to our last episode, she was also the love interest in Cold Storage, our last episode. So obviously, she's becoming a friend of Fresh Cuts, which I'm okay with because, like I said, she's not hard to look at and she's actually a damn good actress. But otherwise, not a whole lot to praise with this movie. Like I said, a few decent kills, a few decent moments of tension, but it literally fizzles out once you get to the end. Any goodwill that this movie built up for the first hour and 25 minutes of the runtime is ruined with the last 7 minutes of this movie. So, yeah. And that's just terrible. Like, I could almost deal with a movie being terrible all the way through, but having a decent ending because the ending is always what you leave with. That's what you're thinking about when you're walking out of the theater. And with this movie, even though it's being panned by most critics, I did enjoy it for the first, like I said, hour and 20 to hour and 25 minutes. But that ending was just so unsatisfactory for me. Just everything that we went through for, basically nothing really to come from any of this at the end. Like I said, other than the 48 people that the killer himself dispatches on his journey. So, yeah, I'm not going to recommend this one as a theater watch. I would say wait for streaming. And I would also say wait for streaming if you are a police procedural slash, serial killer completionist. But even then, you're looking at best, a middle of the road film. So that's it for my general thoughts.
Okay, let's throw it on over to Don and Nelly for your thoughts on Psycho Killer.
I don't have much else to add to that. Yeah, there's a decent idea at the core of this film, but I liked it better when it was called Longlegs. And I thought Longlegs did this a lot better. Yeah, there's just very little here. I mean, the investigation, it's logical enough and it's handled well enough, but I don't really care about the style. I don't really care about following the police detective, just looking at clues. You know, yeah, you get a lot of that in Giallos and the earlier one, Creamies from Germany. But even they knew to spice things up by putting the killer on screen and to, evoke more, not necessarily like outside the boardroom type of investigation scenes, but they did more with their detectives, and that's kind of missing here. And it made those films a lot easier to get into. It made them a lot more fun to watch, and it kind of makes this one just feel like a gorier episode of Law and Order, SVU, or any of those other detective shows that are on TV. I don't really care enough to know which ones they are, but I mean, there's definitely a market for this, but it's just not with me. I don't have much interest in how this kind of unfolds, and how this clue leads to that, and how all of the satanic imagery comes together with how bizarre everything has been leading up until now. The idea is there, but it just needs to not be a police procedural and be more of like a genuine slasher. And I mean, it looks good enough. I didn't really feel like this was worthy of a theatrical release. Like, I think that's kind of the big thing with me is that there's no reason for this to be a theatrical film. This could very easily have been, the Shutter of the Week kind of a premiere, or maybe something on Netflix because Georgina's pretty big at the moment, for whatever that's worth. But Yeah, there's no reason for this to be in theaters. I mean, it just looks technical. It just looks technically polished, but it's not like, extravagant, and you don't really get the big sense that this needs to be seen on the big screen. This very easily could have been, sent straight to streaming, and I wouldn't have really batted much of an eye for it. There's just very little about it that kind of just stands out. And the kills are okay. They're not spectacular. They're not creative. They're competently handled, but they're not really memorable. And the killer's big and hulking, but yeah, there's just very little here to grab onto. Especially if you're looking at this for, like Venom said, if you're looking at this as a slasher film, there's almost nothing here. Like, none of the incidents with him stalking people have that kind of slasher feel to it. There's, very little tension in any of the scenes that he's in. There's very little here to really grab onto if you're looking for that type of a film. If you're looking for more police procedurals, maybe you're going to get a little bit more enjoyment out of it. But yeah, other than that, I don't have much else to add to this. Yeah, I can't really say that there's a lot here to really dive into, especially on my end, I guess. So back to you, Mike.
Okay, yeah, I agree with Don on a lot of this. When I was watching this in the theater as the credits were rolling, I was like, well, that was like a long episode of SUV or whatever that show is called. And I don't even watch those shows, but once in a while, if I'm at like my parents' house, because they watch them, and I'll catch half of an episode, and those tend to those tend to be like the kind of mass consumption, little depth, just kind of gives you, they just kind of throw out concepts and ideas just to get you through the episode of like, oh, this is what this killer's all about. Okay, we'll just run with it. And that's what it feels like this movie is. It's like there was like a concept of an idea to go with, and they didn't really do much with it. Okay, he's a Satanist guy, so okay, we gotta have pentagrams and upside down crosses. Wow, okay, very inventive. And it just felt like it didn't go past that much. Georgina Campbell's good. She's been good in pretty much everything I've seen her in, so hopefully nothing about this movie hampers her career or like slows her progress down from building up, because it seems like she's well liked enough by casting agents that they're giving her like consistent work, so I hope that keeps up. I just hope she gets better stuff, because I mean Cold Storage, even that was fun. But I wouldn't even call that a great movie. But I think she can handle some better scripts than what she's getting. Um, I was thinking maybe this would do some more like in the third act to kind of like punch it up a little bit, or give us some type of twist on like, oh, there's more to it actually than what we thought. And I don't know if that's like what Dawn was kind of alluding to, but I definitely am, as far as like feeling like a CSI show where it's like they just give you kind of some exposition about like the situation with the killer, and that's like all there really is. And I don't know. And like I think it was Dawn that brought up Long Legs too, and I'm like, yeah, I mean you can compare it, and like with Long Legs, it's like we're not just gonna call the killer satanic. I mean, we're actually gonna do a little bit with like some mythology or some weirdness there. This one, it just felt like it seemed like a middle schooler's idea. If you ask like a middle schooler, what does it mean to be satanic? And he wrote out like a list of a few things, and then they took it straight to the writer's room of this movie and said, "We got it. There's our Satanist. There's our Satanist psycho killer for this movie." And yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't know. I just feel like this is a very thin movie, not a lot to talk about. Honestly, I've already forgotten enough of it too, because I saw it Thursday or Friday. Um, yeah, I would say skip it. or at least wait for streaming, I would say, see everything, I guess, but there's nothing really about this that needs to be seen in the theater. I don't think you're going to be missing any elements by watching it in your living room. Um, what else for general thoughts? I'm trying to like think of like the score or the soundtrack, but it's like kind of lost on me at the moment, like how good
It
or
was pretty generic, yeah.
okay, that's probably why I'm not
It wasn't
remembering
it
much.
wasn't bad. It was serviceable. It just was, generic, nothing to praise.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I thought the mask that the killer wore was like, I mean, it was fine. It was interesting. He had the voice thing going on. I mean, I guess it was cool, but it was kind of funny too, because it's like there's no explanation why he just sounds like that. But okay, whatever. I'll run with it. I mean, I guess a scary, buff, satanic guy can have that kind of voice, and it works, I guess, for the character profile. But yeah, there's not much to write home about this movie. I just good or bad. I just think there's not a lot of depth to this one. It's very surface level. So I mean, and that's not always a bad thing necessarily. I mean, a lot of slasher movies I like are very surface level in what they do. I just think they do them well. And this one just kind of is like a mediocre one across the board for me. So I'll leave it at that. Back to you, Venom.
And what an absolute waste of Malcolm McDowell. Like, that was the most pointless cult leader scene I think I've ever seen. It literally was only there to give our, titular killer more victims. It just, wow, what an absolute waste. I just couldn't get over it. Uh,
It's funny you bring that up because when we get the first character that kind of brings our killer to that scene, I was like, okay, maybe if this guy becomes like his like reluctant or unwilling companion like for the rest of the movie that like has to assist him and he's kind of doing against his will. It's like maybe there's going to be something there and then it's like, oh no, it's just to get him to this mansion and then what unfolds there, I don't want to spoil it, but it's like, oh, and then nothing really. I mean, we get what we get there, but then it just feels like a unnecessary detour from like the movie. I'm like, what was the purpose of all that?
yeah, that was definitely the most play school satanic cult I think I've ever seen. I mean, it's funny because Mike talked about asking, a 5-year old what a satanic or a fifth grader what a satanic killer, what elements they would have. It's almost like they asked the same fifth grader what makes a satanic cult, and the first thing he comes up with is sex. It's like, really? I don't think that's the first thing that Satanists think about is ritualistic sex, but okay. Oh man, it's just so bad. That entire scene was such a fucking waste of my time. And this movie is only 92 minutes long. I mean, it's not a long movie yet. It still could have been trimmed by a lot. There was many scenes that just kind of feel like an absolute waste. Like it doesn't add anything to the story, doesn't add anything to the lore of our titular killer. It just, yeah, it just multiple pointless scenes in this movie. I mean, I thought the movie started out great, with the first murder, or at least the first impactful one, the one that actually matters to the story and kind of gets the story kicked off. I thought that, the way it was handled was done really well. It seemed like, the first act was my favorite, and then the second act would be next, and then the third act is where the movie just fizzles out. So it's like my level of enthusiasm for the film just kept dropping as the movie went along, which is really, really too bad. I did like our titular killer, though. I mean, what was it? JT Reeves, I believe was his name. I thought that was, I thought his backstory was cool. I thought, his methods were cool. And on top of the fact that by the end of the movie, considering some of the things that actually happened to our killer, there's almost like a supernatural tinge to it. It's almost like the end of Terrifier, the first Terrifier, where we're watching the entire movie thinking it's just a guy in a clown suit. And then we get the post-credit scene in the first Terrifier and we realize, oh, there's something supernatural to this Art the Clown guy. He's not just a guy in a clown suit. So I thought that was an element that just, didn't get explored enough because like I said, this killer should have died twice, in this movie and didn't. And it's like, that seems like there should be something supernatural there. Even if the police and the FBI agents and everybody chasing the killer don't want to buy into that theory, I still would have liked to have seen something to kind of gear us towards it. I mean, Terrifier nailed it, the first Terrifier, and I've famously said I don't like the first Terrifier because it's just killing for killing's sake. There's no story. It's just literally Art the Clown kills a bunch of people on Halloween night. That's the story of the first Terrifier movie. But at least that post-credit scene kind of got the ball rolling for what we were going to get in Terrifier 2 and 3, whereas this movie it kind of leaves that aspect dangling. I mean, I definitely am not saying that I want to see a sequel with more supernatural elements or to explore those elements more. I'd rather just leave this IP alone. I think we're good with Psycho Killer. Before it gets to the level of The Strangers, let's just stop it now. Because I did see, obviously we didn't talk about it here on the show, but Mike and I did both watch The Strangers Chapter 3, and yeah, the taste of bile in my mouth by the end of the movie just absolutely said we were not going to review that movie. So thankfully, Cold Storage also came out last week. But yeah, I don't know, not much else I can really talk about that isn't spoiler filled. So unless any of my co-hosts have anything they want to add, I guess we can get into a spoiler discussion now.
Nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, there's not much to our story. Our movie opens up with a scene of our killer driving a kick-ass Mustang, like a nice muscle car Mustang, driving down the freeway. There's reports on the radio about, blah, 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 a killer on the loose who's on a rampage. And obviously it's the guy that we're following. It's pretty obvious the way that the camera shows him, where the camera never actually shows his face. The only time the camera shows his face is when he's either wearing a mask, and of course you can't see his face when he's wearing a mask, or when he's wearing his sunglasses and he has his long hair down over his face. Then we'll get some, but you still can't really see anything. So we don't get any facial shots of the killer. Anyway, in that scene, he ends up killing a highway patrolman right in front of his highway patrol woman wife, who just happens to be there. And that kicks off the movie, where she just starts following this killer against the wishes of both her precinct and the FBI. But she basically flips them off and says, no, I'm going to find this guy because of what he did to my husband. And, multiple people, including her father in the movie, trying to convince her not to do it. But of course, she won't be deterred. Blah, 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 blah. Eventually, we find out that
she's determined.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, she's determined, because at every turn they're like, "Stop doing this. It's too close to you. You're not doing the right thing." But funny. Of course, someone on the inside is sympathetic to her. So,
well, yeah, you always got to have that sympathetic character, and of course, it's a woman. Which makes it almost like it's a woman feeling bad for another woman. It's like it could have easily been a guy. I mean, I don't know why we have to have gender roles here. Like only a woman can support another woman, but whatever. So yeah, like I said, we end up following the killer as they kill multiple people. We get multiple kill scenes, one in a motel room, or two in motel rooms actually. One at a pharmacy, where we find out that the killer is actually like taking psychotropic drugs for one reason or another. I mean, it's not like we see him taking the pills, but it's not like he trips out or freaks out, other than just, killing people, obviously.
Yeah, that's what I forgot to get more, like, maybe I on purpose didn't get detailed in the general thoughts, but when I say like the stereotype, it's like drugs, heavy metal, and like it's like the bullet list of like what makes a scary Satanist person. Well, he's probably on like all these psychotic drugs. He's huge. Oh, and then later on in the movie, he's listening to this death metal that's slowly turning him into a kill. Like it almost seemed like they were suggesting that. I'm like, oh god, like this. Are we like harkening back to Satanic Panic era for like some of these tropes now?
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking this movie would have played a lot better in the 80s in the middle of the Satanic Panic. But yeah, now it's almost laughable. Oh, you forgot to mention the tattoos too. Every Satanist is covered with tattoos. So yeah, you can't forget that. Very satanic tattoos, of course. But
hell, it may have been perceived a lot better because it would have been so far ahead of its time. I mean, police procedurals didn't exist back then.
Yeah, valid. No, absolutely. I'll go with that. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, we find out that the FBI thinks that this killer is inspired by a previous, well, technically not a serial killer, a mass murderer called J.T. Reeves. J.T. Reeves was a guy who killed 13 people inside of a church and then gave himself up to the police. And they found out that he was a Satanist and he was trying to open a portal to hell. He figured killing exactly 13 people inside of a church would do it, but of course it didn't. And then that particular character, J.T. Reeves, ends up getting killed in prison, or at least according to the FBI, he's dead. And, because he tried to kill his cellmate, and a guard basically shot him in the head and killed him. But so obviously the FBI thinks that he's, being inspired by this guy. Now, as the movie goes along, we eventually find out that he's not inspired by J.T. Reeves. He actually fucking is J.T. Reeves. Apparently, this guy survived a bullet to the head from a prison guard. Now, if that doesn't sound supernatural, and I understand that some people do survive gunshots to the head. I've seen it. Or I've read the stories, I know that it's not impossible to survive a bullet to the brain, but this guy obviously did it, and they don't really talk much about how he did it, or, how, did they bury him and he dug himself out, or did they take him to the coroner and he, basically killed the coroner and escaped? According to the FBI and all the police in this movie, they believe that J.T. Reeves is dead. So, after we get the confirmation that this is J.T. Reeves, we see him put an ad in the paper trying to find other Satanists that might be able to help him in his goal. We don't really find out what his actual objective is until later in the movie. He ends up getting a reply. Another classified ad replies to his ad. He ends up he decodes an encrypted message that was put in the paper. He calls the number in the message, finds out that it's basically a group of Satanists that basically are willing to help any other Satanist that need it. So when he ends up going to meet this group of Satanists, it's just a fucking joke. Like I said, he gets there, and the first fucking thing they do is just have a big old orgy, literally just a bunch of ritualistic sex, and the killer is just standing there looking at him like, what the fuck? like the killer instantly knows, or I guess we can call him JT now at this point. JT is staring at them like, what is going on here? This is not Satanism. This is not going to get our Dark Lord to open a portal. Like, you people are just fucking stupid. And that's when he basically decides, fuck it, he's killing all of them. So he goes back out to the car, gets a can of gasoline and an axe, and literally just starts axing everybody in the room. They're all butt naked. They're literally mid-coitus. And he's just, chopping off, limbs and hitting people in the head with the axe. He basically splits Malcolm McDowell's head open from the top, and then he takes the can of gasoline. I thought he was going to spread the gas around the house and then just light it up, but all he does is he takes the entire can of gas and just throws it in the fireplace, still in the can, of course. After a few seconds, we hear the metal of the can start to kind of expand, and then it mildly explodes, starting a fire in the house. And then the killer ends up leaving. As he's leaving, that's when Georgina Campbell's character arrives at the Satanist complex. But he's able to incapacitate her car by hitting it. Like, he's driving a Chrysler 300, which are fairly sturdy cars, and she's just driving a cheap pickup truck. And so he's able to hit her, incapacitate her car, and keep going. Blah, blah, blah. Eventually, we find out that he actually wants to go to 3 Mile Island because, as it turns out, It is the 30th anniversary of the meltdown at 3 Mile Island. If you guys, those of you who are too young to remember, yes, there actually was a nuclear power plant meltdown here in the States. Where is it? It's in Pennsylvania, right? I think, or New Jersey. I can't remember. It's somewhere east. But anyway, that's his plan. He's basically going to 3 Mile Island, and his plan is just to start a meltdown purposely, to turn off all the cooling, stuff, all the machinery that's in charge of cooling. He basically has a technician turn them all off, and then he basically wears a dynamite vest, one of those suicide bomber vests where he's basically wrapped with sticks of dynamite, and he has a hand grenade. Now this is where the movie starts to just kind of piss me off. Just this ending is just fucking awful. Basically, it seemed like the killer did everything right throughout the entire movie, but then of course, because he killed that highway patrolman in front of his wife, she is now Superwoman, and of course she ends up catching up to the killer just before he's about to activate a grenade that he's holding in his hand, which he's using as a detonator for the dynamite that's wrapped around him. They don't say it in so many words, but I think the intention was that the killer figured that if he started a major meltdown at 3 Mile Island, that it would open a portal to hell, I guess. I mean, like I said, they don't say it in so many words.
This is one of my issues with the movie, because I feel like the killer, like, we're getting all these things, I guess, from the killer that screams like, "Oh, look, I'm a Satanist and I'm doing this for the Dark Lord and I'm gonna bring upon whatever, a satanic apocalypse or whatever the hell." But I'm like, law enforcement doesn't seem to be treating him like any different than, oh, he's just like a crazy serial killer. Like, there doesn't, I mean, obviously, like, melting down a nuclear reactor is going to do damage whether it has anything to do with like Satan or not. So, like, obviously they're treating him like a crazed lunatic, but like when you compare it to kind of like other movies, there is it seems like there's actually like a reason you're tying in Satanism to it versus, hey, this guy's just mentally deranged, and there's nothing really supernatural or that I can remember is comes into play. It's just like, are we supposed to think that he's actually opening a portal to hell potentially, or is he just like mentally ill? Like, I don't know if the movie ever like gets into that. It's just like, well, he says he's a Satanist and he has tattoos and he leaves bloody pentagrams, so we're just gonna run with it. But the FBI, it's not like they don't seem like extra worried like that, you know, he's doing that. Because a lot of movies, when they're dealing with like either, a Satanist or some type of voodoo or the dark arts, I guess, put that under the umbrella, they'll actually like get into like, like researching it and like, oh, we're gonna interview other people, like, what's this guy actually up to with his satanic stuff or their black magic or what. But this movie, it just seems like they don't really care about that aspect to him. It's just like, he's just a killer and we got to stop killers, and that's like the extent that the law enforcement cares.
Yeah, this was definitely a color by numbers satanic killer. Just very unoriginal, uninspired. Like I said, other than his physically imposing stature, I mean, there wasn't really anything too terribly special about him, in all honesty. I mean, I did like at least that he almost never used the same weapon twice. Like, he kills people with an axe, he kills people with a sledgehammer, he kills people with his bare hands, he kills people with a gun. So he's actually, he's all over the place with his choice of weapon, which is weird because most serial killers generally have a favorite weapon. Jason has his machete, Freddy's got his claws, Michael has his butcher knife, you know what I mean? So interesting. And for a killer who comes off as very intelligent, he just, by the end of the movie, he just seems like an idiot. Like, how did he not know that woman was trying to shoot through the window? Like, how did he not hear those gunshots cracking the window, the supposedly bulletproof plexiglass. But instead he sits there. So the end of the movie is basically he locks himself in the control room of the power plant. He turns off all the cooling stuff. Once it gets to a critical temperature, he's going to activate the grenade, which is going to blow him up with the dynamite on him and then cause the meltdown. But rather than just fucking doing it, he kneels, he draws a pentagram. Oh, and by the way, these weren't pentagrams in the movie. These were pentacles. So that kind of shows me at least that the people who made this movie don't really understand Satanism all that much. And for those uneducated, let me inform you, a pentagram is a 5-pointed star. And usually when it has a satanic connotation, it's upside down. But if you draw it and then draw a circle around it, that is no longer a pentagram, that is a pentacle. And a pentacle doesn't really have nearly the satanic connections that a upside down pentagram would have. So yeah, that kind of bothered me a little bit that, these people didn't take the time to do a tiny little bit of, research on Google about Satanists, Mike's comment about this movie being potentially written by a 5th grader just makes more and more sense the more I talk about the movie. So anyway, point is, Georgina Campbell, she shoots her rifle through a plexiglass window. She's not able to break the whole thing down, but she is able to get just a hole in the window big enough that she can get the barrel of her sniper rifle through it. She ends up shooting the guy in the leg, which gets him to kneel down. And then he's about to pull the pin out of the grenade. And she shoots him again in the arm this time, which actually forces the killer to pull because he already had his thumb in the little pin holder. So when she shot him in the arm, he pulls the pin out of the grenade, but then he drops the grenade behind him. Apparently, this grenade wasn't very powerful because the grenade maybe fell, at most 12, 15 feet behind him. And then the grenade goes off, but it doesn't detonate the dynamite, which I don't know. I guess I just don't understand physics that much, because I would think that a grenade in the same room with 20 sticks of dynamite is going to ignite the dynamite, but I guess I'm wrong. So once the grenade is exploded and the dynamite didn't go off, the killer starts lamenting, the fact that he took too long. And then Georgina takes one more shot. It hits him in the back of the head, killing him. He falls to the ground, and that's the end of it. But then we get like an epitaph scene where we find out that Reeves did not die from the second time he's been shot in the head now. He did not die. He basically he survived. And then the final scene of the movie is them just taking him back to the same prison that he was at just before the movie started. This is what I mean about a status quo ending. Other than the 48 people that the killer kills on his journey, there's no impact for this movie. It didn't need to happen. Like, you wasted an hour and a half of my life to give me a status quo ending. And that just irks the shit out of me, Like, this guy obviously planned his escape from prison for a long time. He had been out of prison for years, because they were talking about JT Reeves having been killed years ago. So I guess he was just waiting for the 30th anniversary of 3 Mile Island to, near to get close, so that he can then start his journey east to 3 Mile Island to set off his plan. So yeah, I just, like I said, the fact that this guy has taken 2 fucking bullets to the head, yet they don't explore any kind of supernatural element, just irks the shit out of me. Go ahead, Mike.
It's almost like they wanted to leave it up for a sequel, but I don't see any circumstances that there's going to be a Psycho Killer 2.
Nah, I can't imagine. With the reviews that this thing is getting, most of what I've heard about it, I mean, it's sitting on a 4.9 on IMDb right now. Anything under a 5 usually doesn't get a sequel unless, it makes a lot of money, like those Transformers movies or whatever. But I can't imagine this made a lot of money. I didn't even go to Box Office Mojo to find out what this thing did. It's nowhere near the number one movie of the week in the country. So yeah, I can't imagine there's going to be a sequel. And even if there is, I'm not all that interested anymore, unless they do like a Terrifier, where they went from Terrifier 1 that seemed fairly grounded to Terrifier 2, which has a lot of supernatural elements to it. Maybe I might be interested to see a sequel. Because, like I said, I did like The Killer. I just thought that the filmmakers wasted him. They wasted his stature. They wasted that great voice, which, he's a little hokey at times. I actually thought I wasn't thinking that was his real voice. I thought that might have been him hiding his voice, kind of like Christian Bale when he's in the Batman suit. He changes his voice so that you can't tell it's Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, like
that's what I was thinking.
Maybe, yeah, or like Bane, where maybe like the voice is enhanced through the mask.
Yeah, because the mask does look like it looks like it could be like a not a scuba mask, but something that has a breathing apparatus attached to it. So yeah, I thought maybe that was also a thought, that it was the mask or that it was just him changing his voice, but it seems like no, that's his actual real voice, which kind of does make it a little hokey, but whatever. I'll deal with it. But yeah, like I said, overall, this movie it kind of falls short in every aspect. It didn't have enough atmosphere, didn't have enough tension, didn't have enough kills, didn't have enough gore, didn't have enough with the killer. Like I wanted to see more with the killer, not killing, but just like they briefly, and I mean briefly, like they literally give us 2 seconds of him looking in encyclopedias, studying nuclear power and 3 Mile Island. But that's it. It's literally like a 3-second shot of him just sitting at a desk reading 2 encyclopedia entries, and that's it. It's like, no, I want to see more of this guy. I want to see how intelligent he is, or is he just lucky? And that's a possibility too. I mean, hell, I've said it before. I'll say it again. Luck can be a superpower for a lot of people. And, maybe he's one of those guys where his superpower is just luck. He's just fucking lucky. So I don't know. Ultimately, though, the movie doesn't leave us with enough to really want to see more. I can't imagine that there's going to be many people out there that want to see a Psycho Killer too. But who knows? The fact that he's still alive at the end of the movie, the fact that he escaped from prison once pretty much implies he can do it again and, potentially go on an even bigger rampage, blah, blah, blah. But now, obviously, with the police and even the general public knowing who it is, maybe if he does escape later on, it won't be as catastrophic because people will know who he is and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, I mean, we don't even know what he looks like. I don't think we ever get a shot. Even when they showed the original trial of J.T. Reeves after the church massacre, he always had his face covered. The only way that we actually can tell that it's the same person is that he has the same tattoos on his hands. In the original news clip of him holding his face, covering his face with his hands, we see the same tattoos that our current killer has. So that's kind of the aha moment where you realize, oh shit, it actually is JT Reeves. It's not a guy inspired by him. So yeah, it left me with a lot to desire. So I guess I got nothing left for Psycho Killer. I'll turn it back over to Mike.
Yeah. I don't think there's much more to say, so we'll wrap it up there. Venom, we recorded the main show, and once I get through the adventure of trying to edit that, particularly the last like 45 minutes, because
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh man, like I said to you last night, I am not jealous of the editing job that you have ahead of you, because this is probably going to be your longest edit ever. Not only was the show almost 3.5 hours long, you have so much gibberish to edit out, so much just weird back and forths between, one of the guests and, other people on the show. So, I mean, we love the guests that we had on the show. Absolutely love them to death, but sometimes it turns into the wild, wild west when we podcast with them. So still love them
though. Is there anything else you got out now?
Creature Comforts episode 46 is still our latest episode where we looked at Godzilla Final Wars. We already do have our next episode picked out. We were gonna record yesterday, actually, but then since we decided to record the main show, since all the guests and hosts were finally available, we went ahead and postponed Creature Comforts. So, unfortunately, again, this episode of Creature Comforts is going to be late. It's the February episode, but it's probably going to be out, hopefully no later than like the first week of March. Hopefully, I can get my co host together this coming weekend to record the show, and I'll try to do a quickie edit and have it out quick. But yeah, that's all for me. Nothing really else to report.
All right, how about you, Dawn?
Yeah, not much else. Creature Comforts. Hopefully, sooner rather than later, we can get that episode out. I guess the only other thing is my appearance on Paranormal is the New Normal. We did a round robin, round table discussion on sex horror movies. So, despite the fact that none of the films I wanted to be in there won, it was a fun time. So go ahead and check that one out. Should be a video version. I don't know if there's an audio or anything like that, but it's out there if you look for it.
Cool. Oh, that's kind of funny because the movies that we picked for the main show that we recorded yesterday were also sexy, kind of sex-oriented horror movies from the 90s specifically. So
not the kind of films that we did in our discussion.
Oh, no, I'm sure the films you guys did were way better.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee it.
Well, we had 4 Jess Franco movies, so that automatically...
hell yeah, shit.
Yeah,
that's all you needed to say.
Yeah, that automatically outclasses it. 32 films and 32 films, and 1/8 of them are Jess Franco films.
I love it.
I just wish that my co-host would have. Oops.
Oh.
Yeah, none of them made it past the first round because nobody wanted to watch subtitled.
Oh God. That's too bad. I'm gonna keep my opinions on that to myself. I don't want to upset people I don't even know. All right, Mike, close us out.
Yeah, I have nothing new at the moment, other than the main show, which I'll probably be getting out sometime that our next episode of Fresh Cuts. Because usually the editing on the main show is a little more, so I do it on the weekend, so I gotta wait.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of I think I might be guesting on a 22 Shots coming up, but I'll know officially because it's this Sunday, so I'll know by the time we record our next Fresh Cuts anyway. And then as far as our next episode of Fresh Cuts, it's probably one of the bigger releases of the year, not just the month. What that means for any of us liking it, I mean, that's irrelevant, but it's still worth mentioning that, yes, it is the latest Scream sequel, 7, and there's an interesting story behind like everything going into it just because of all the situations. We can get into that on the episode. We don't need to go through that now, but yeah, Scream 7 will be the next one. But there also is, I don't even know how horror it is considered, but it is taking a couple characters from the classic Universal movies. The Bride is coming out, which
very excited for that.
Yeah, it's like a different kind of take, I think, on the monster and his bride.
Mm-hmm.
Like it almost looks like a crime caper movie with Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein in it.
Well, the mere fact that Bride and Frank actually like each other totally changes the mold. I mean, don't forget, the Bride didn't like Frankenstein at all in the original.
True. So
isn't the first time that they actually like each other the Munsters?
Wasn't Lily a vampire? I thought Lily was a vampire because I remember the big joke was that a Frankenstein and a vampire had a kid and it was a werewolf because Eddie was basically a werewolf.
Well, I mean,
that's what I thought.
I thought the daughter was a vampire.
I see. I had always heard it was the mom. I mean, because she kind of does look rather vampirish. Like she looks more vampirish than Frankensteinish, at least in my opinion. Obviously, I'm just quoting what I've heard, so I might not be right either.
In the Munsters, I thought wasn't the one daughter like the normal one? Like completely randomly, she was like just normal.
Right. Marilyn was like the normal attractive girl, whereas the rest of them, I almost feel like Marilyn was a stolen baby. Like Lily and Herman just kind of stole her from the hospital. Because
I
how
don't
the
know.
hell did they have a normal baby?
I don't know. I maybe I'm getting the show mixed up. I always thought it was the joke was that it was the mother and daughter. The Frankenstein and his wife actually liked each other for once.
Oh, I mean, maybe. You never
I don't
know.
know.
Like I said, it could have just been an online joke that, caught some that got some traction because I had heard it multiple times. A vampire and a Frankenstein had a werewolf baby. And that was always like the big joke about the monsters. But obviously it could have just been hearsay and conjecture or somebody just trying to make a funny meme. I don't know.
Maybe I haven't seen the
Yeah.
monsters since I was single digits, maybe.
Oh man, I am a loyal watcher of the Munsters. To this day, I still watch the Munsters. There's actually a Munsters channel on Pluto TV. So it's just 24-hour Munsters. So yeah, it's not like I'm constantly watching it, but I am a big fan of the original Munsters, and I'll watch it any opportunity I can get.
Alrighty then. Well, yeah. So check us out in a little over a week for that episode. But until then, let's say bye to our listeners.
Later.
This was not the Talking Heads movie that I wanted to see.
Her deserved.
Yes, thank you.